Hi, I am Getaneh Alemu. I am a cataloging and metadata librarian here at Southampton Solent University in the UK. I'm going to give this lecture on the role of metadata for collection development and curation in digital libraries. This is an online course organized by the University of Parma for the International Master students in digital library learning. In this short lecture, I will talk about what metadata is and provide a brief description of the benefits, the role of metadata, the different types of metadata, metadata standards, and also an emerging principle and theory called metadata enriching and filtering. So first of all, what is the role of metadata? Karen Calhoun, in her book Exploring Digital Libraries in 2014, identified 4 major components of digital libraries. These are collections. This could be ebooks, print books, electronic journals, print journals, publications within an institutional repository, or data. And the second component is services. It could be anything from loans, from referencing, any digital library search, browse services, and users, the most important part of a digital library, and communities, and technologies which provide the platform for these collections to be accessible for this community of users. So metadata provides description for content in the collections in the digital library. This could be publications, as I said, like books or data. It could be publications like research articles, or it could be the data that supports the publication of this research. Metadata supports digital library services. It helps users find relevant content by, for example, describing the information object and then allowing users to search, browse, explore, identify, select the relevant information object, add their own metadata, annotate, and also by sharing and remixing information objects. So metadata has a crucial role for digital libraries in general. As you may know, Shakespeare in Romeo and Juliet says, this is Juliet saying, "What is in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet." Well, what is in a name? The answer is metadata. Metadata is a very important part of the names. The identifiers are actually very important part of digital libraries. So we beg to disagree with the irrelevance of a name when it comes to information objects in digital libraries. So in as much as possible, give them a name, identify them with a name, give them a description, and include diversity of descriptions, so that these information objects like books can be accessible, can be discoverable and findable within a digital library context. So metadata is an essential part of what we do in libraries. Information organization in general is fueled by metadata. Google, for example, is a metadata company. As you know, most of these days the web applications, digital libraries have become more and more search based instead of browse or navigation based. It's because of the amount of digital information we have. We can browse and navigation would not scale to the extent we wanted to include all these digital collections. So search becomes like the main digital library enabler instead of browsing. So the metadata that sits behind these search engines, these search systems and digital libraries is actually fundamental in making the resources behind that data accessible. That's why it's called metadata. Data about the information object, about the actual books and electronic resources within our collections. Metadata in general answers the WH questions like what is it about, who created it, who is the funder, who are the editors, who is the publisher. So that's to check the authenticity of the information objects. And when, it gives you the time frame, where it has come from. For example, the place of publication, the location on a network, where is it sitting, which hardware and software is used to create the information object. This is also very important because you can only access digital objects within a kind of a software and hardware platform. So you need to know what kind of software supports the access for these digital objects, the format and the medium. So in general, it answers the WH questions. There are different types of metadata. In a broader way, we can say there are three typologies of metadata: descriptive metadata, administrative metadata, and technical metadata. Descriptive metadata describes an information object, for example, the title, author, year of publication, subject, keywords of a book or an article or a data set within an information repository or a digital library. So that is a more descriptive, what is it about kind of information, which is descriptive. It just describes the information object. The second category of metadata is administrative metadata. This could be like the source, provenance, rights, and context. All these administrative metadata will help us, for example, in terms of licensing. If it's an ebook, how many licenses is this? Is it a single user license? Is it a multi-user license? Can many users at the same time can access this electronic resource? So all these kinds of rights information, how much of the ebook can be copied, printed, or the provenance, who created it and where it has come from. All these kinds of information is very important to understand the context of the information object, so that we can allow users to access and use our digital libraries, our digital collections in our digital libraries. In addition to descriptive metadata and administrative metadata, technical metadata is also important. As I said previously, hardware and software used, the file format, the media type, the links. So this all again will enable users to access digital collections. In order to create either descriptive or administrative or technical metadata, there are a plethora of standards across the web, across the digital library world. Some of them are relevant for specific purposes. Some of them are like general descriptive standards like doubling core. Some of them provide the structure. Some of them provide the content, allow you to add content in a specific format. And some of them are more like providing the link between digital various types of digital collections. Some are relevant for learning, some are relevant for business, for example, for publishers. Some are pertinent for textual kind of information, others are for image. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of metadata standards across the web. So I can just focus on a few which you use in the library context. MARC is a very old library standard since the 1960s for exchanging bibliographic information across libraries, across publishers and libraries, so that using a more traditional format, text-based format, libraries can exchange information about books, like the title, the author, the publication place, the physical description information about the book, like the page numbers, how many pages a book has, or it could be a summary of the book, subject keywords for the book. All these kinds of information can be represented in a MARC standardized format. But MARC has been in the libraries for very long. So there are now newer standards like BibFrame, which are perhaps going to change MARC for a better link-friendly format. Some of the standards, for example, RDA and Ferber, are more principles on how to actually create metadata, create description of information objects. So it gives you a specification, it gives you a schema, and also a format whereby the metadata can be exported from one platform to another. For example, here, learning object metadata is one metadata standard for learning objects. Onyx is for publishers. XC for image metadata. Again, you don't need to, if you want to use some of them, yes, you need to study each standard. But as in general, what's important here is to know at this stage that there are so many standards, and it all depends on the purpose you want to use them. DILL is a web-based descriptive standard. DILL has 15 major metadata elements like title, creator, subject, description, publisher, contributor, date, type, format, the identifier, the source, language, relation, coverage, and rights. This can be used, for example, to describe your web resources, but because DILL is such a generic standard, we cannot possibly use it for detailed description, and for that purpose you need, for example, other standards like MARC, or there's another one called MODS. It's a MARC but for a more web friendly standard. Or in fact, currently, with the emergence of linked data technologies, new formats like RDF and ontology-based systems like OWL have begun to emerge even in libraries. So at some point we will be able to use these standards, but they are all at their initial stage. But if you want, you can just go search for RDF. BibFrame is a new bibliographic framework for libraries and all these standards, so that you can get more information about them. Metadata is about links, it's about connections, it's about relations, it's about bringing the various information resources together, and not only information sources, that is the books and the electronic journal publications, but also linking the data and the data with the publication, and the publication with the people who published it, and the people with their organization, with projects, with funding, with all related components that makes it a whole, a complete information system. So what metadata does, actually, it bridges the gaps by way of linking across institutions, and also by interlinking within our digital library context. So that's about linking. Recently, there has been, especially as I said, with linked data and the emergence of these new technologies, there is a move towards opening library metadata for other institutions to use. Not only libraries, but also other cultural heritage institutions, publishers, or anyone who is interested in using any metadata within a library context. That's the principle of metadata enriching and filtering. The other important area we will look, especially in this online lecture, as we go on, is users as metadata creators. There are different actors who create metadata. One is computers themselves can create metadata. A lot of, for example, when you take a picture, a lot of the information, the background information, where is the place, a geographic location, or the camera, the type of camera, the lens used, or all the detailed information about the picture that you take, that is generated by the machine, by the camera or by the computer. So that's computer generated metadata. There's a lot of metadata generated by when we browse and navigate and search and go around clicking on the web. So if someone collects it, there's a lot of metadata actually sitting behind. That's why, as I said, Google is a metadata company. That's computer generated metadata. But also the second main the major actors in metadata creation are either institutions or people who intentionally create metadata, add description, add administrative metadata as technical metadata to the information object. The other is and most important are users, because only users know why they are using this information object, and also users provide us their understanding of the information object, their interpretation by for example, by tagging or commenting or reviewing, sharing the information object. So all this by rating it. So all this can be combined in a kind of user generated metadata approach and used within a library context. So one of the things you need to look in when you see metadata in your course is user generated metadata, or Foxonomics they are called. It's a more users as co-creators of metadata, users as active collaborators in our metadata creation. So users can be considered as metadata creators. So that's one area, one emerging area where we can have more diverse metadata. What this would give us is the metadata expert on one side adds metadata, which is called a priori metadata. The users on the other side add metadata, which is called post hoc metadata, or user generated metadata. But you can combine these two. This is a theory that I developed in the context of my PhD in 2014. So I developed 4 principles: the principle of metadata enriching, metadata linking, metadata openness, and filtering. By integrating these 4 major principles, I came up with the idea of the principle of the theory of metadata enriching and filtering. So in short, what it does is enrich your information objects with as much metadata as possible. So that's metadata diversity. So that's like carrying a huge bag of metadata describing just one information object, because it's coming from the expert, it's coming from the user who give you their insights, their understandings of that information object, and then you filter it in a way so that it makes sense for the user, it's beneficial for the user, because the whole purpose of metadata is actually to support the findability, discoverability, or searchability of the information object. You are not only bringing the users to the library, but you are pushing your documents, your digital collections to users. So you are exposing your content through what? Through metadata. That's why metadata makes the invisible visible. Metadata is the fuel for digital libraries. That's why we study the different types of metadata, the various aspects of metadata within a digital library context. And that's why also metadata is such an important part of digital libraries. As I said initially, there are different standards, but it's important that as digital library students, you understand the broader principles that actually underlie that are foundational principles for metadata creation, so that you can actually design a very good information organization system which is usable and relevant for your users, because that's the whole purpose. The whole purpose of digital libraries is, making information accessible, which is always the case for libraries. So user-generated metadata can happen in different ways. It can happen through tagging by adding keywords. If you go to librarythink.com and search for a book, for example, here everything is miscellaneous, you would find like different types, categories of metadata: the tags, the basic descriptive metadata like the titles, the author, the publisher, but also the ratings here, and whether people like this information resource or not, and very importantly, the links beneath the title, showing that related books. Sometimes this authors might actually have opposing ideas, but as a researcher, you need to have access to the various resources that are related to this information object. So metadata pushes content, allows you to discover content in a kind of serendipitous way. Serendipity is an important concept within digital libraries. Again, go and search for serendipity in digital libraries, and you find more information what serendipitous access is. Metadata can help you describe paintings. Who is a painter? Not only that, the time or the kind of technical forms of the painting. Is it the various whether it is a painting by a known painter, or by just an amateur, or you can also describe who are in this painting. This is, for example, a painting by Raphael, and you can see these are the philosophers, and you can just name them, you can describe them, and you can allow users to give their understanding of this painting. So you can enrich it. That's the point of metadata enriching. So in general, metadata, as the National Information Standard Institute, NISO, defines metadata, describes information objects such as books, and provides context so that users can be able to access, find, identify, use information objects. And there are different types of metadata and different standards of metadata. Then different actors of metadata, like computer generated, user generated, and expert generated. And metadata can be used in different diverse ways in digital libraries to support findability and discoverability. I hope this makes sense, and we will carry on in the online bit of the lecture. You can ask me any kind of questions and send me your comments at getaneh.alemu@solent.ac.uk or getaneh@gmail.com. You can find my email address in this slide as well. Thank you very much.